Do you feel like a transition is approaching you? I mean, where you feel called and compelled to leave everything you know and go after your inner tugging, your that divine pull within, that place of the unknown where you know when you get there, it's not exactly what you imagine. Have you ever dealt with that? Huh? Have you ever felt like telling the truth might cost you too much? Oh, think about that one right there. Or have you ever held back because of who you might disappoint? Like, I really want you to think about this stuff. Have you been silently suffering behind the mask of leadership or ministry? Or have you ever felt like you were being treated or mistreated because of your beliefs, or unfortunately, the color of your skin? Listen, I have the perfect guest who is more than qualified to speak life to you regarding this very thing. What's good, Elevation Nation, and welcome to the Elevate It podcast, where it stands for inner tugging, the divine pull within, guiding us in self-awareness, relationships, and spiritual unfolding through inner work. I am your host, Christian F. Johnson. Now let's go. Look, today's episode is titled Suffering in Silence. But somebody go ahead and type but, all right? If you feel churchy, you can turn to your neighbor. I'll let that slide too, okay? But answering the call to liberation. And our guest is, she's so powerful and electrifying. I'm telling y'all, listen, hear my words when I tell you this. Listen, she is a law school graduate, a devoted wife, a mother of 5 thriving queens, and the author of My Untold Stories, right? The road that leads to liberation. That's what we're talking about, y'all. This powerful woman is the perfect example of what it means to walk in obedience, even when it may cost you everything. Are y'all with me, Elevation Nation? I need you to put your emoji hands together and help me welcome to the Elevate It podcast, Miss Brittney D. Wardlaw. Are y'all ready? Let's get ready and go. What's up, sis?
Listen, brother, I had to make sure I stayed in my chair because I was about to get up and run around this office. I started off a little nervous and said, well, but listen, I appreciate that introduction. That was on point. I appreciate the love.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much. I tell people, if you ever need a hype man, before you do what you got to do, just go ahead and hit me up, okay? Hit me up, send me the tickets. I typically don't travel without my wife, so it would be 2 tickets, but get us there and we got you, okay?
Listen, I had made that mental note in my head. I said, okay. if I ever am in need of a hype man, you the one.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much. Look, thank you for taking your time out to join us on the Elevate It podcast, Elevation Nation. Listen, I'm telling y'all, I mean every word of what I said. And your story is amazing. And we want to get into your book. We want to get into a lot. All right. And the thing they don't understand this, but when we were talking before, like, I was like, why don't we just hit record? Because like we had a podcast episode right then and there, but seriously. I guess I got to kind of rewind and kind of call some things back to see. Like Lamentations 3 does tell us, this I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. So I have hope in you, Brittney, that we can move. We can move with this, okay?
We can. We will. And we're going to have even more that's going to come out. I believe it.
Look, I believe it too. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. All right. So take us back to the moment where you felt like that inner tugging was telling you that it was time to go ahead and leave what was familiar and go to a different path. So take us back a little bit to that, because we had conversation off grid that you are now in the state of Texas, correct?
Correct.
But
correct.
That's not where you are. That's not where you grew up.
Not at all.
So talk to us a little bit about this.
So we taking it back to how we got here. back. Bro. So the short version is, I was gainfully employed in Virginia, working in higher education. I started that job out of law school. Um, I found a niche in higher ed, really being able to advocate in a different way than I thought that I was going to be doing in my career as an attorney, right? And so I had really found my groove as an administrator. I was an executive director, I had a team. I loved what I did. We lived in a beautiful neighborhood, newly married, one sweet little baby, one on the way. Like life was good. And I randomly, one of my law school colleagues came to visit me. She was also in the same profession at another institution here in Texas. And we're just catching up. Long story short, she says, "Hey, the school I'm at, we're in crisis and I'm building a team. What you think?" I said, "Swerve, hard pass. Thank you." But no thanks. And so we left that, our little get together. I think we having breakfast, and I couldn't shake it. And I'm like, this is wild. Why would I leave? Why would I leave? I would not leave. Like my life, I couldn't ask for anything else right now. Why would I leave? And I could not get rid of the thought. And I mentioned it to my husband, and he was like, "Why not? What's the worst that can happen? Right? What's the worst that can happen? You apply and you get the job." And the crazy thing about, just how, when you are in a marriage and both people are wanting to hear from the Lord and be obedient to what they're hearing, right? What God had been speaking to him was about holding things with an open hand. What does it look like to have an open hand? So he can give, he can take away, right? So he says to me, because I'm thinking there's no way he's going for this. He was like, "Apply." Brother, that was October, and we were in Texas by January.
Oh.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So that was one of the first moments of like, something's happening here, right? When I made the decision, I'm going to take this job and move, the peace was crazy. I was like, I know this is outlandish. We are going half of a country away from everything and anybody that we know. We have nobody there. There's nothing but this job, right? But the peace I had was crazy. We both had peace. Like, this is what we're supposed to do. The response from pretty much everybody, because I think people were hurt. My job was they were throwing everything but the kitchen sink at me to stay. I mean, double the salary, promotions, all these things. And so I was feeling a lot of anxiety, like, okay, maybe this is crazy. Maybe I shouldn't take it. And I had an intern at the time that said, "Hey, sis, God leads, the enemy follows." And I was like, okay. So anything that's happening now is a counterfeit of what you already about what you're supposed to be doing. And I was like, she was right. All right, we're doing this. So we find ourselves in Texas less than 3.5 months later.
Wow.
Me, 36 weeks pregnant with a 2.5-year-old, and my husband left his unemployed, really. And that was one of the first big moments of like, okay, this doesn't make any sense, but we're just going to follow it. We're going to follow.
So what was the hardest part of that?
The hardest part was the disapproval and the unknown, right? It's like, man, no one is backing us on this. We would have one or two voices, very siloed voices of like, I don't like this, but this feels like what y'all supposed to do, right? But the people we love the most that were really hurting, right? They're grieving. the loss of the proximity, the loss of relationship. They're not happy. And most of my life I spent trying to make the people that are most important to me happy. And that's been the unfolding process that I've seen over the years. Like these last few years is like, man, I have spent the majority of my life being really good at making everybody pleased with me, right?
Mm.
Firstborn, right? I do what my parents tell me to do. I don't do what I'm not supposed to do. I, get the grades that I'm supposed to get. I do the careers that I'm supposed to. I go to the college that they want me to go to, like, because this is what's going to make them happy. And it's harder for me to do what I think I want to do, or even explore what I think I'm supposed to do, if that means all these people are going to be upset, right?
Mm.
And so that was one of probably the second major time in my life that I had to make a decision that I knew there was a tug. The tug was undeniable. And if I ignored it, I would be in total disobedience. And I couldn't live with it.
Mm.
I couldn't live with
Wow.
it.
Wow.
So
So
regardless,
was that transition easy? I mean, so you get there. It's January, right? Well, Texas in January because the area where you go, we will vacation, so it
right.
ain't that bad. In so it ain't the weather bad, but the actual transition because you got kids. How many kids at that time?
We had one and one on the way.
One and one on the way.
Mm-hmm.
So that mother, that wife, that role, that hits. Y'all got business at that point in time. You're just going straight to a job. Where we at?
No businesses, no businesses whatsoever. My husband is leaving a job. He's leaving a PhD program. We're leaving a house that's still for sale, that we're still paying a mortgage on in Virginia. And we're going to like temporary housing. We've got one kid, one on the way. And he doesn't have any prospects of working because he's like, hey, we got a newborn coming. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna lock in here at home. I'm gonna take care of the kids until we get situated and comfortable. Um,
Mm.
the move was pretty brutal because it was so many things happening. Like the moving truck didn't leave. We didn't have any clothes. The moving truck's sitting in our driveway for like a week. We don't know where the movers are. We don't like it was laughable, right? But I think at this point we were so high on this is where we're supposed to be. We were
Mm-hmm.
unfazed. We're excited. This is a new chapter. This is a new season. It's fine. It's fine.
Mm.
We're gonna weather this.
It was brutal, but a blessing. See, that's when the preacher in me comes out when it's like the titles, the two liner. Okay. Anyway, but it was
Listen,
brutal, but it was still a blessing. I'm tracking you right there. So tell me, the next part is good though, right? You get there, you get a job, is good, right? Brittney is
I wish.
no.
And I wouldn't
Oh,
even say I wish because this is all part of the story. I wish.
okay. Talk to me then. Where we at now?
So the first month I was there, that was the final weeks of my pregnancy, right? So I get to the job and they're kind of like, almost treating me like, ooh, we don't want to cause her to go into labor. We have a couple things we want her to learn before she has this baby, right? We're not gonna do too much, which was fine. And I had the baby a month after being there, and I go on maternity leave. And the weeks that followed, Christian, I think you would appreciate this is the blessing part. There were so many little things happening that were confirmation that we were where we were supposed to be. The
Hmm.
favor, it was just random. Like the people we would meet, like we were randomly running into very influential people in the city. Like we were building relationships, and it wasn't like we went looking for it. It was very much okay. We're just going to get settled in. We're going to kind of get to know our city. We're going to get to know where we're living, and we just randomly would just make connections everywhere. It didn't matter where we went, and it very much felt like, man, this feels really natural. Like this doesn't like we're not having to work at this. This is just something that is naturally flowing, right?
Hmm.
So then I get back to the office, and that is when It was like darkness unleashed. Um, in hindsight, I'm able to understand what was happening, but real time, I was perplexed. I was utterly perplexed.
Come on, my kids say, "Give me the tea." So go ahead. Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm going from a Christian school, I'm coming to a Christian school. So I kind of had, a similar expectation of, environment and culture and all these other things. And I talk about this, in my book, but it was as if the darkness hated my light. The supervisor that literally recruited me, it was like an ambush. She was the biggest bully I've ever experienced in a workplace. I've ever experienced or I've ever seen. It was vicious and it was swift. It was like every day that I came into the office, she was picking a fight with me. She was tearing me down. She was criticizing. And this is weeks. I've only been here for weeks. And every time she would like bait me, I would try a different approach. Like, okay, let me just kind of submissively, humbly take whatever she's trying to explain. If I didn't respond, she would be like, "You don't have anything to say for yourself." Like, it was like she kept trying to bait me, right? So then sometimes she would say something and I would try to stand up for myself respectfully. And then she would chastise me for, it being disrespectful or speaking up. It was crazy, right? So this is for a month, day in and day out. Mind you, I have a 7-week-old, 8-week-old, right? So I'm going into the office. I'm trying to pump in between. She's telling me I'm not keeping up with my work. I need to figure out how to make up my work when I'm, pumping and all these things. If I'm stopping a nurse and all these things, right? My anxiety is through the roof every day. Every day, I'm telling my husband like, "Yo, I don't know what she wants. I'm trying, like I am trying." But in the midst of all this happening, again, there's that blessing and was it the burden and the blessing? In the midst of all this happening, people
It
would.
was brutal, but it's okay.
Okay. Sorry.
It's
Brutal.
okay.
Anyway, sorry. My bad. See, that's why I take notes in church so I can remember what that said. So, in the midst of all this happening, there would be things like, there might be a dean or a provost or a professor that would call the office looking for me. "Hey, is Brittney available? I'd like to talk with her." "Hey, did you like all these things would happen, frequently. And you could just see she was vexed by this. So the more those things started happening, again, in hindsight, I recognized that there was some insecurity happening. There was this fear that I was coming to try to take her job, take her position, all these things. So we're a month and a half in. Long story short, I get a phone call right before we're having like a team building activity, end of the year. It's like May by now. And she lets me know, "Hey, meet me in HR tomorrow morning." And I got off the phone. I said, "Babe, she gonna try to fire me. She's trying to fire me." And I go to HR, and this is a whole thing that I unpacked because it was crazy. And that's literally what she was trying to do.
Oh.
And writing all of these little things that she had been baiting me into and had spun them into this narrative where she could present it to HR as if I need to be let go immediately.
Wow.
So it catapulted us into a crisis. We have just moved our entire family across the country. This is
Yeah.
May. This has not even been 3 months. Moved everything, picked up everything, left jobs, left PhDs, left family, left friends. And I am about to be in HR without a job in the middle of a country, in the middle of the country.
Wow. Let me pause you real quick. Don't forget where you are, because there's some things for Elevation Nation that I want to pull out as well. The passage comes to my mind that says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." And I was sitting with this on some personal stuff that I've been dealing with, and I think it kind of relates to this. I think sometimes we have to look within. We're huge on just inner work on this podcast and just looking within. And so it hits me like, are we letting our light shine, or are we looking taking our light to look for darkness.
Hmm.
Because it's two different perspectives pertaining to that. And I mean, I get both. I'm not saying right or wrong, but it's just to think and process that, right? Because if I'm thinking about it, if I'm illuminating, if I'm light naturally just being who I am, like, then whatever darkness may be, like, then it has to dissipate. It has to go away. It has to disappear. But sometimes I feel like we use it like a flashlight in senses where we're like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and just search for the dark areas, so forth and so on. And how we deal with those two different areas is different from my opinion. One is if I'm just being, let's go for that. Like, I'm being who I am. Brittney is who you are. I'm here. I'm here now. Hi, y'all wanted me. I'm here. And now I'm just illuminating, right? Now I'm just being me. And so there is an area where people or principalities, whatever you want to go ahead and call, they come to these situations where they get to either honor the light that you have, or they have a choice to be irritated by the light that you have. Now, from hearing your story, again, I don't know the people or places, and for purposely, I'm not mentioning either schools, but it seems like there was an irritation. So I want to take a teaching moment for you from your story, and you're saying, I illuminated, right? I was who I am. I'm trying to operate. I'm trying to be who I am. But when there is irritation from your illumination, what is it that you did? Because somebody might be right there. They might be like, look, girl, I'm feeling this right now. I'm in that place where it's supposed to be illuminated. It's supposed to be like, it's supposed to be this. I had zero doubt that this would be like this. But now that I'm here dealing with this irritation, how can I continue to vibe? How can I continue to illuminate? So can you speak to that for just a moment?
Yes, yes, that is a great question because the fact for me was I didn't know that's what was happening at the time. And it had me perplexed and frustrated, sometimes really deflated, um, confused. And I had a few conversations. I remember one of them being with my brother, and he kind of mentioned this whole like, "Hey, you're light. You're being light and dark, and it's not them, right? It's this is bigger than what you think is happening." And I was annoyed because I'm like, what do you mean? No, that's them. This is them. No, we are not going to try to minimize how people are treating me or how people are acting. And what I would say, Christian, is that having the perspective and recognizing what is actually at play to me offers a different level of stability, clarity, right? If you have a different level of clarity while it's happening, you don't have to be, oh my goodness, what is happening to me? We don't have to be perplexed at what's going on because we knew that this is a thing that happens, right? We knew that this is something we should expect, right? But when we have no idea what's going on and we don't recognize that that's what's at play, it can really have you disconcerted. But if you are centered in the reality of what's happening and not taking things in the natural period, then you can be centered in a way that helps you navigate the space differently. I don't have to give into this, right? I don't have to take the bait. I don't have to be overwhelmed or frustrated. I don't have to be discouraged by this because I already know what's going on.
Well, that's the word right there. You don't have to take the bait. I mean, you just said it right there. Like, right where you are, we have the choice. We can choose to be right where we are. We can choose to entertain that. We can choose to vibe high, as I like to say, and just go to a whole different place.
Yep.
And then realizing that, and this is what I learned too by going through just a good amount of therapy. And I know your husband is a therapist, so I'm sure you get that as well, right?
Mhm,
So is
mhm,
that a lot of times people can project on you what's going on within them.
mhm.
And so I think when you're starting to realize those things, it does help when you
Yeah.
can navigate and say, you know what, I get it. It doesn't feel good, but it's really not about me. Like, it actually has nothing to do with me. I'm just
Mhm.
the one that was there. And so that can be helpful as well for somebody who's just processing that, saying, you know what, maybe this has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Now, even if it has nothing to do with you, I always say, okay, I still have an opportunity to say what I can do. What is the lesson that can be learned from here, right? Because somebody is always watching. And if nobody, then God, the divine source, life, beauty, is always watching and understanding where. And what is this test? So now you go from this Abram situation, go to the land that I'm going to go ahead and show you, and now you find yourself in this place. You know, like you say, husband's leaving a PhD program. You're in a place that you're dealing with stuff, potentially leaving your job. Now, were you let go at that time?
From where we moved to Texas?
Yeah, from that position
No.
when you got caught in the HR,
Nope.
you weren't let go.
Nope. And it was
So
a.
it's more to it, huh?
I wasn't. Nope, I was not. There were a lot of different events that there were battles happening on my behalf that I could not I could have never anticipated. There were relationships that were forged in that 6 weeks I was on maternity leave that people ended up fighting on my behalf that I would have never even known had access to people in high places in the institution. It was crazy.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow,
So,
wow.
long story short, the VP, who was multiple levels above what was happening,
Hmm.
she ended up interceding in this situation.
Hmm.
And they had given me an ultimatum. They said, you either complete this, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 page performance improvement plan in 30 days or you're terminated. If you can't do this in 30 days, you're out. And it was an impossible plan. Like, it was impossible. It was meant for me to fail, right? Or you can take this severance. Here's $40,000 and you and your family can go back to Virginia. Those were my options. So they gave me a few days to think about it. And in this process, there was a whole lot that happened in those few days. Like I said, things happening that I was clueless, right? But I knew what I was hearing. And in preparation for going to that next meeting, I had a download of what I'm supposed to say when I get there. And when I got there, I said, we're not doing either one of these. And here's my new job.
Hello.
Dead ass.
What?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Seriously.
How did that go?
They said, okay. They said, okay. Because that VP came to the follow-up meeting. She wasn't supposed to be there. She came to the follow-up meeting. And she had actually gone to the CEO of the institution before that meeting and asked, I have funding for another position, unbeknownst to me. So when I said it, she was like, done. I already got approval for it.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's when I started to see, like, when you start saying yes,
Stay there. Stay there.
the provision,
Yeah.
you are going to walk through fire. And a lot of people are like, yo, that looks hot. I ain't going. Right. And so a lot of people don't even get to see the provision that comes in the midst of that heat. Right. Because most of the time, we bail or we don't do it at all. Right. And so the provision was supernatural. Like, you bust out laughing because that's how crazy that sounded. Right. But that was the download. That's what I'm supposed to say. Okay, this is the position. Okay, this is what I'm supposed to say. This is what I'm supposed to do. And if you ask anybody else, that you'd be like, that's crazy. That's wild. No way. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you said the fire. You said fire, and you're going to go through fire. All right. So when I think of fire, I think of two different things. I look at the area of the burning and being consumed, but I also think about the purification aspect of it as well. Right.
Yes.
Because there's a part too where you're saying I had people who are fighting on behalf of me. So some of this I didn't even have to go to war for, so to speak.
Can I say something real quick if you don't forget?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the words that somebody told me in the midst of like this 3 or 4 days that we had until I went back to meet with HR, they said, hey, you're supposed to go to battle armed and ready to fight, but you won't have to use a weapon. You literally will not have to lift a finger, but you have to go armed and ready. And that is exactly what happened.
No, I love it. And I think for me, it's the perspective, right? Because we're in a day and a time, and I want to be careful, but I also want to speak what I feel is truth, that how should I say it this way? I'll say it this way. When we're going through something, it doesn't have to be painful.
Mm.
And I think that when we think about pruning, for instance, like you're taking things away, like, but it's a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it doesn't hurt at time, but I do think there are moments, there's times that you can be, you know what, because of where I'm at, because of who I'm connected to, because of this realm, like that I'm operating and cooperating with. Like some of these things don't even have to touch me. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be roses and dandies and all that, but I am saying that when you have that, yes, when you have that understanding, when you've dealt with that area, we've talked about the area of this episode of suffering in silence, but there is an area of a protection in that area of silence as well. Like, because you might be going through what you're going through, but it's a perspective. Like, do I have to fight? I can be armed, but I gotta hear, I gotta listen, I gotta be quick to listen, slow to speak, to realize you could have been the angry, forgive me for saying, the angry black woman that come up in there and clap back and do all that, you know. Now I would like to have been a little camera on the wall when you went in there with that word, but I wasn't, and it ain't that. But the point is that when you're hearing, when you're receiving, that even what you're going through, that there is provision that is being made, but there's purification even in the midst of the fire. Because I heard you say, as I look back in retrospect, I can see the purification. Right now, it might feel like fire. It might feel like it's burning and it's doing this. But yes, and both fire and purification.
Yes. Yes.
So now please tell me, in this position now I got better though, right? Because you said this is where I'm. Help me out, Brittney. Come on. I mean, what?
This was felt a little bit like a wilderness. Because they put me in this position. And there's a lot of, at the time I know that it was divine provision and covering, right? Because literally my family and I could have been out back, like halfway across the country, no family, no job, like easily. I get in this position and I get moved to their HR department because what the VP says to me, hey, this position is going to be in my department now. So you'll move into my department, right? So I moved there, but for a few years, what this became was, hey, little black girl, like we didn't want to lose you and we didn't want you causing any problems or trouble. So we're going to keep you in this little corner office. Like, don't do too much. Do a little something, but don't do too much. Like you're cute. We like you. Your personality is great. When we need you to headline stuff, when we need to put your face on stuff, when we need you to be a figurehead in places, we'll pull you and you're going to feel real important. And we're going to make you feel like, yes, you are an asset to this team. But the reality is, if you do anything that's like actually about advocacy, that's actually about inclusion, that's actually about creating equitable spaces at our institution, ew, whoa, pump your brakes. Like that's not what this is. That's not what this is. You thought it was, but it's not. And if you continue to do that, it's gonna become more problematic. So just chill out and we'll keep you paid. You'll be paid well, and we'll put your face in places that look important, and then we'll all be happy with that.
Yeah. Wow. First off, I pause because you're going through, and I'll be honest with you, like I can't relate to that aspect because I mean it's just not my story. I have been blessed. It's funny because I tell my mom this, like growing up with their generation, it was a lot of I'll say racial tension and different things like that, so forth and so on. But for me personally, I've always been loved and liked, and well, at least from my perspective, what they did behind my back is whatever. It wasn't blatant to my face or anything like that. And so even to this day, black, brown, Caucasian, whatever. That doesn't matter. Like I still have really strong relationships, but I'm not ignorant to the fact that it doesn't happen. Right. And I have three African American black kings. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's an area where it hits my heart and to navigate. I've heard stories, I've dealt with things, maybe not blatant in the face, but it was just different things like that. So like I'm here and I knew this was a part of your story. And the reason why I feel even connected is because I feel like there's a way that we can carry ourselves where we still speak truth, where we still do what needs to be done. But it's also a place where it glorifies and it doesn't turn into hate. Because I've seen this, okay? This is just my perspective. I've seen and witnessed that, okay, this person is wronged by racial injustice or whatever the case may be. So now they turn into the very thing that they were offended by. And that's the part where I'm saying, how do we represent light, be light? That's that part I'm saying. Okay, so now somebody's trying to look was darkness. So now am I going to be the one to go ahead and call that? Or what is the example? Where do we see Jesus the Christ or Yeshua ben Joseph operate? What is he doing in those places? And that's why out of anybody, your whole mission and where you are, like to understand and operate in these places. There's sometimes when I see Jesus deal with Peter, James, and John. So it's it's a very intimate setting. So it ain't public like a podcast, right? But it's a private area. But then there's a point in place where you see that, no, I'm going to speak to this and deal with this in the crucifixion. All that's a very public situation in that area of injustice. So what do we do? How do you navigate these things? I mean, you have a book called My Untold Stories.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it could have been untold.
Yeah.
Now you're the place saying, no, like I need to speak up.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And how do we navigate that?
So for me, the tension that I held then was back to the people pleasing ways, right? That I told you about. Like I appreciate, I love, and I value being liked. I appreciate and love and value these relationships. And I know that if I say certain truths, it's going to make them uncomfortable or they're going to be offended or, it's just going to change the vibe of the room. So let me play my cards right. Like, and I hope you or your audience are not offended by this, but
no, do your thing.
Let me be the good house Negro, the way that they want me to be the good house Negro. And then once I show them I'm a good house Negro and I can be trusted, then they'll give me more responsibility and they'll trust more of what I'm saying. So I can say these truths because they'll trust me, right? I've been really good here in the house and I haven't done anything that's going to make anybody in the house upset, right? And I've taken good care of the house. And so what happened was, I'm continuing to see the injustice or the mistreatment of the field, right? Of the visitors, of like anybody who doesn't really have position or power to keep the injustice from happening, regardless of their color, their race, their disposition, even their job position, right? I saw those things and I'm seeing it. And in some ways, I could affect how this goes and how they're treated. But I'm continuing to kind of let it happen. And I might say a little something, but again, not wanting to ruffle feathers. And I continue to do this and continue to do this, thinking I'm just buying my time. And once they give me this elevated position that they say that I'm working towards and will have, then I can keep these things from happening, right? And so this continued to happen for years and years and years I say years and years. It was like 3, right?
Yeah.
To the point that I got to a place of, okay, at this point, I'm being complicit, right? This is not, now I've turned and now I hate all of y'all and now I gotta speak up. It's like, I'm sick. Like
enough is enough. You can't take anymore.
I can't. And it was happening to me for a long time, but it wasn't until lines were crossed for other people that I was like, all right, it was a intersection of recognizing that um, they're not going to change. They're not going to being the house Negro is not going to get me in the position to get them to change, right? This is going to continue to happen. And the more I stay silent, the more people will be negatively impacted, marginalized. And so it came from a place of this is what is right, even if it's going to cost me everything.
Let me jump in real quick because I think the way I hear you explain it, even if I could come out of right now just the race aspect, just the principles of it, it sounds like a manipulative relationship, right? Like it can be somewhat emotionally, mentally abusive in a sense, right? I think about the area of relationships where somebody's like, you know what, I'm in a relationship and this is what was pitched to me and this is where I'm at and now I'm in it and it's not this, oh, but I'm gonna tell you this or I'm gonna go ahead and give you this or I'm not gonna beat you up or I'm not gonna do this or whatever the case may be. And now it turns into that situation and now you're just saying like eventually like enough is enough. I'm getting out of here. And so even if the situation didn't change, it sounds like you're saying I changed about the situation. And because I changed, I continue to do what needs to be done. I'm realizing this is no longer a fit. And that's an area of an encouragement for somebody who is sitting here, who is listening, who is watching or listening to the story. Maybe you relate specifically to what Brittney is saying, or maybe it's not this particular situation, but the principles of it, and you're able to identify with it. And I believe that the message is from what I'm hearing, and I believe this is a part of the book as well, is that you don't have to suffer in silence, one, and then two, like you can change it. My wife says this all the time. I can change my mind. Like she's like, you can change your mind. Like that's okay. Like, and you know what? And this is a part where on your site, I believe there was a quote. It says something like, "I've seen Black and brown Christians under psychological silence or something like that, physiological silence." And that part that hit me is like, okay, even in the area of this book, you're just like, not anymore. Like not me, not my kids, not anybody under sound of my voice. And this has become a movement, right? Because it's not just you, it's you and your husband that both cooperate in this area, in this field. So I want to know, how does your book address this area of liberation and no longer suffering in silence and that healing and that hope? How does it address that?
So one of the things that I've realized um, is that a lot of if you read this book, for a lot of people who can resonate with my story, because you will see that this is not new, this is not unique. There's so many people that are going to pick up the story and read and be like, that happened to me, they said that to me, I've heard that before. Like it's not unique. It's not unique. But the thing that makes it unique for me is that I'm actually saying it. And the reference you made, Christian, was, we suffer psychologically in silence, right? Because we think it's just me. Nobody else understands this. Nobody else has experienced this. Nobody else has heard this. No one else feels this way. And that silence is what keeps you in captivity, right? It's that silent part. You literally feel like I can't say nothing to nobody because nobody will understand. And then on top of that, there's layers of, if I say something, how could this impact my family? How could this impact my job? How could this impact my livelihood? How could this impact my career trajectory? And those are all hard questions that we all have had to ask ourselves. And making a decision about when you decide that silence is no longer serving you well, right?
Yay! Book two.
There's more in me. I feel it. I feel it.
What?
You bringing it
Look,
out.
I know a coach that helps from mindset to manuscript if you need to holler at him real quick.
Listen. Put it to
Yes.
protect us.
Yes, Brittney, right there. It's not serving me anymore.
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna let you in on a secret, okay?
Okay.
Right now, well, we both know it's not a secret since this is public as I don't know what, but right now I'm writing a book about my own voice.
Okay.
because I realized that, see, and I'm not going to get emotional. You know, you feel a little lump in your throat and you be like, nah,
Mm-hmm.
we ain't going to do that today. Right. We ain't going to do
Let
that
it
today.
out. Let it out,
No,
brother.
but this is why. And this is why I didn't even see it until you started talking of a connection. And maybe in hindsight, your story is encouraging me to go ahead and do what needs to be done. Because for me, the silence was, I do a good amount of speaking, okay? Preaching, speaking, whatever. But I realized that what I was saying wasn't my voice.
Mm. I was going to say the same thing. I did a lot of talking, but there was things that I wasn't going there. I wasn't going there. That's not
I
that.
wasn't, yeah, I wasn't resonating with it any. So, I mean, getting up, standing ovations, um, good job, this and that. But at the end, I didn't embody what I was speaking.
Mm.
So when you're talking about that in this untold area, like maybe in the earth, and maybe y'all can let us know, Elevation Nation, in the comments, whatever. Like, do you feel like it's like in the earth right now, even with our generation, like it's time to speak up and speak out about whatever it may be. Again, and I'm not talking about being disrespectful. I'm not talking about throwing anybody in the bus. I'm just talking about you sharing your truth so that there's liberation and freedom. Let us know in the area of the comments. Let us know. All right, Brittney, you just messed me up in there, and I didn't see it, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this has really hit me. So right now, I'm gonna send you some chapters. They ain't gonna get it yet. I'm gonna send you some chapters so you give me some feedback, and we can get you some quotes, and then you can go ahead and I'll put you on a book. But right now, I'm right there, right here, and I'm like, you know what? There is a, how should I say this? There's like an appearance of success
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
you can be like, it looks this way. This surface success. That's what we'll call it, right?
Okay.
That surface. But we're masking
Mhm.
what's really going on.
Yes. Yes. And that was exact. I mean, that is a facet that I've never expressed it in that way. But I literally could have continued to be surface successful. I could have. I could have. And I've had moments, right, where I'm like, dang, surface success, does come with other perks, right? It does make life easier. You can, um, financially, communally, like all of those things. But once you decide to lean into what you're talking about, Christian, most people are not ready to pay that cost to lean into what is embodying truth and speaking that look like.
Mm.
For a long time, I never went there. I never had to. But this,
Mm.
what I walked through refined, um, broken refined me in a way that it exposed this beautiful aspect of my person that I didn't realize was there because she was so stifled and suffocated and tucked away.
Yay!
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, look, we could talk forever, and
Okay.
and I'm looking at my time to go from there. But I have to know, okay, because I want somebody to get help. I want somebody to be at a point in place where they're hearing what they're saying, they're resonating with it. But now what we did was we just brought up a lot of feelings for people,
Yeah.
okay, and so they may be going through their own story. And I personally, I don't like to leave people where they just now they in their feelings.
Right.
Brittney, how did you get free? Like, share with me some practical things that we can find, whether it's in your book or not. But what, at least give me like 2 or 3 things that person is now seeing, they're feeling, they're like, okay, cool, I'm dealing with this. So this liberation, what were some things that you've done to get to this place of freedom? Because a blind man can see that you are right now in a different level of freedom and
Yeah.
being able to even just write this. So share with us a little bit about what those steps look like.
Yeah. So there was a few things, on a really simple plane. One of the mediums that got me to a place of freedom because I left feeling a level of brokenness, but a level of freedom, and so there was healing that needed to happen, right? I did just start writing. I don't think I started off thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to put all this in a book. It was more like, man, I have really suppressed a lot of what has happened over the years. And every time a memory would come to mind, I would just write it down. I would just write it out. And I couldn't believe how much I had repressed, right? And the more I wrote, the more things started coming back, right? And it was just like a coping mechanism for my body of like, just the only way we're gonna make it through is if we just stuff this down. So writing was a big thing for me. Um, I want to affirm and encourage people that are in the midst of really not being sure or comfortable or knowing if, speaking is now or speaking is for them. Um, it's okay because you will know, right? And when you do know, do not be afraid to take the steps toward being obedient to the tug, because being obedient to the tug is what will bring you into freedom. You may not know how to get there. All you have to do is literally be obedient to the tug. Where are you feeling this tug, right? And for me, the tug was like subtle, 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 and then I felt a yank, right? And so when I felt it, instead of resisting it, it was like, okay, it's time. I'm gonna lean into it. And I do believe God is patient with us. He knows like what we're ready for, right? And so you might start to get little inklings of like, ooh, okay, I don't know yet. I don't know. But when you know, obey, respond to the tug. You know. And the clarity will be there, right? And once you know and you make a decision to respond, don't double back, because the doubling back is really what causes us to be unstable. The scripture
Wow.
that says a double minded man is unstable in all his ways. When we know and then we start to, oh, well, that's what causes us all that anxiety. That's
Yeah.
where we get really messed up. But once you know, just lean into it. Lean into it. Because he causes all things to work together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. Because, yes, you could ask me a million questions like, oh, would you have done this differently? Could you have done this? Maybe, but it doesn't matter because he worked it all together for his good. Period. So I hope that's some practicals.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. And look, we're about to transition, but I dare not move forward without asking you where we can find you on social and where we can get this book that we've been talking about. So please give us that information.
Okay. This is here it is. My Untold Stories of Rosa Led to Liberation. You can get it on my website if you want a signed copy, BrittneyWardlawJD.com. You can order a signed copy and I will have that sent to you ASAP with a nice little note inside. If you want to order on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or any local bookstore, you can order it there and you can get it there as well. I will say this last little shameless plug. I launched like a small apparel line when I released my book, with some of the themes from the book. And so I'm wearing some of that. Faith over fear is one of the big apparel taglines that I have going on, because faith is always going to be bigger than our fear. Fear maybe is going to be there, right? But let your faith be bigger than your fear. And so, yes, socials, Brittney Wardlaw JD on all of them: Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Brittney Wardlaw JD.
All of them. All of them.
All of them.
I love it. I love it. Listen, y'all, get that book. Hear me. If you've resonated with this story, get the book. Get the book. Get the book. Christian, what you say? Get the book. Matter of fact, y'all can put that in the comment section. Get the book. All right. And listen, as an author, I understand, some people be like, oh, I want to go ahead and support you. We appreciate support dollars. But really, when you write the way that we're writing, you want people who really are resonating, because we're not writing for just support dollars. We're writing for change. We're writing for freedom. We're writing for liberation. What needs to be. So go ahead and do what needs to be done. We don't care if you take 5 pages a day. It's not about rushing through. It's about resonating with it and continuing to do it. And matter of fact, you know what? Get 2 books. Why? Because why not just read by yourself? Get your homie or your spouse or whoever it is, make sure that y'all are doing it together and you're able to talk those things through. And if you haven't already, Brittney, one thing I love to do when I have books is having pretty much like a read with the authors a time where it's just sometimes just like a Facebook group or something like that where you can just put something out there and say, look, you get the book. We're going to go ahead and read this together. If you want a one-on-one or anything that you want to talk about that, and we can go ahead and not, I hate to say upsell, but there's an additional cost for those things because there's one thing to read the book, but then knowing the author, getting to connect with the author and then being in that environment, it's a whole different level of ministry. So I don't know if you got your conference together yet or whatever, but I just speak those things and just continue to be encouraged by your movement and your motion. And so I also speak life to your husband and all his endeavors and your babies and everything that's going on. And I just want to say thank you for joining us on the Elevate It podcast. So I always ask my guests to leave us with a final word of empowerment that we can carry on out with us through this week. So as you're looking up in the ceiling, trying to get the word, the revelation from there, yes, we need a word. Give it to us. What do you want to leave us with?
So I think the word I would leave with you is trust the journey and the process. I know that everyone that reads or listens or heard what I'm talking about, it's going to resonate with you, and you're going to be at a different junction of the story, right? You might be thinking, I don't know how this ends, or I don't know where my next step is, or I don't know how I got here. Trust the process that you are going to end up exactly where you're supposed to be. To go with the theme, lean in, respond to the tug, trust where the tug is taking you because the tugger is trustworthy. Yeah, period. He can be trusted. He can be trusted. And just because hardship happens along the way, it doesn't mean you heard wrong or you're doing something wrong. That was a lesson that I learned very deeply. In my mind, I thought if I'm obedient, obedient equals blessing, right? That's what's going to happen. I obey and then I'm blessed. Now, yes, I can be blessed in a lot of different ways along the way, and it may not look the way you wanted it to look or thought it would look, but it will be good. It will ultimately be good. Yeah. I did forget to mention it's also on Audible for those people that are like,
Oh yeah.
It's on Audible. I appreciate being here. I really do appreciate being on Elevate. This has been an incredible opportunity. Your audience is blessed to have you coming to them regularly. I cannot imagine. I can't wait to dig into all of the content that you have brought for people. Seriously, you are, I know I'm being a little churchy, but you are anointed to do this, brother. This is incredible. So thank you.
Thank you.
For the space.
Thank you.
For the encouragement, and thank you for speaking life over me. I am doing a little book tour this summer. So I will be on the East Coast, so be on the lookout if you want to connect.
Get us that information. We'll make sure that we post it and so they can go ahead and connect. Definitely. I believe in your message, hands down. I do. I believe in your message. I think it's needed. I know it's needed. And so again, thank you for elevating with us and just sharing with the family. So I know they got something amazing. Again, please go get the book, get the Audible. As soon as she said that, I already know what I'm doing. Okay. So if you haven't already, you can hit that subscribe button and you can continue to stay within the flow. I won't do a whole lot of talking over what Brittney dropped. Typically I will go ahead and share how to connect and all those type of situations and the books and all that stuff. At this moment in time, she released something that I think is just so powerful, and it's just like the end of a good service. Sometimes you just need to sit in it. So Elevation Nation, thank you as always for being you. And if you need to go back and rewatch this, get a pen and paper and just resonate with it, just sit with it and just continue this to be elevated and going to a different level. All right. So may good, great, and awesomeness flow to you and through you all week long. Again, Brittney, thank you. You are amazing. You are awesome. And look forward to your tour and as well as you speaking all over this globe. All right, sis. Appreciate you.
Thanks, brother.